I know where to go.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. I certainly could use the support. Even though I'm Uncle Sam and I take your money, I could still use some more support. This is quite a crowd.
Yes, it is.
Looking at the opening day here, it's about, maybe 7:45 at the Maison. And so far, we're pretty damn packed. And that is where I've been for the past 5 days. Been at the True Legends Conference, and to say that was heavy subjects would be mild. This is a bit beyond the things that I already know, and like daily politics and the New World Order, things of that order, the things you'll hear me talking out on the streets. Because when I'm out on the streets, unless I run into somebody that knows anything about the subject matters that were covered at the True Legends Conference, well, you kind of lose them. I went up there, of course, to seek knowledge about things that I'm not totally familiar with, although I have had, I've done my studies on them. But these are fields that certainly are about ready to take us over, that we all need to be boned up on. Primarily, the True Legends Conference is about the transhumanism that's taking place, and the biological weapons. They focused heavily on chemtrails at the conference. Mind control agents G5 came up, or 5G came up quite a bit. And the rollout of the mind control, different aspects, methods, and techniques and tactics of how and what they plan to be doing with us useless food eaters here in the near future. Because no matter how you crunch the numbers, they come out bad for the human race, or a good many of us that are not going to be prepared for what's going down. So the conference featured several speakers, of course. We'll go down the list here, and you want to take notes. And if you're not already familiar with some of these people, you certainly want to get there. Stephen Quayle, of course, is the producer of a lot of many things. I also got his latest documentary here. You can see Forbidden History Revealed. The Egyptian Present in Americas and the Pacific Rim. Great Smithsonian cover-up. So this gets quite a bit into the history that the Smithsonian has been hiding from us, and that indeed there are quite a bit of Egyptian artifacts that were found in the Grand Canyon, including tombs, pretty much changing the course of history dramatically from what we knew it. I watched what I could of it last night before I fell asleep watching it. So I'm going to rewatch it again. But I fell asleep because I was exhausted, not because this is boring. This is extremely interesting and well worth the price I paid for it. His cohort in a lot of this is Timothy Alberino. This is the kind of man's man kind of guy that, he'd rather be out there in the woods eating grubs than doing conferences like this. He is, you know, the guy that Harrison tried to play. This guy is him. So, you know, he's the guy that does go out there and digs up the artifacts and lives under the banana trees. David Knight, of course, gave an excellent presentation. I had a great chance to, of course, meet David again, to have a great discussion with him in front of the stage there after one of the speakers. Him and his wife, we talked for a good 15 minutes. So that was fantastic to see David again. And I got a short little 5-minute clip of him. I caught him in the lobby later on that I'll be showing.
All right, I got a question, David, for you. I wanted to ask you last night. It's concerning this. The truth, of course. That's what we're trying to push. That's what we try to get out. There's been a lot of mention, there's DVDs here, there's books on it, on Trump's ascension was through the power of Christ or the power of God. Gave us some time, bought us some time. There's talk that he knows the truth. We've been waiting 2 years. As you know, I do street interviews. I'm always asking people how do you gauge? What do you think he's doing? How far is he going? Everybody's happy with what he's done for the most part, except lock her up was not a campaign slogan. After 2 years, we haven't, only people we've seen in jail are Manafort and Flynn. I mean, and we hear these 42,000 sealed indictments. When at least a couple of them, can we go on the offensive? Because the frustration I'm hearing on the street right now is, even the papers, the documents being released for the FISA. Just check to see if he released them this week. No, maybe next week. I mean, we've been hearing next week now for how long?
Yeah, I know.
Of course, this was Sunday, and this being Tuesday, the next day, of course, Trump released finally, or they gave the order to. They still haven't been released, but finally came out. So yahoo for that.
It's such a large thing, and they're coming after him, and I'm just going to give him some space to try to work this thing out as he had. I think you're going to see things change either for the better or the worse after this election.
But when we go into the frustration,
I'm frustrated.
But
Believe me, I'm frustrated too.
But you and I and everybody know, there's enough. They've already admitted to enough offenses.
Yes.
I mean, we could put them on the offensive right now just by what they've admitted to.
I agree. But I think the thing is, when you look at the Justice Department, and then the whole big question is, is Sessions with him, or is Sessions against him, or doesn't know what's going on?
But his base is behind him. His base would applaud him. His base would rise up, and right now his base is questioning.
Yeah, I would love for him to make a move. And I don't understand why he is taking so long, unless...
See, I was hoping you'd have an answer.
No, I don't have an
You're
answer.
David Knight, for crying out loud. Everybody comes to you answers. What the
I've
hell's
never
wrong
met
with
the man.
you?
I don't have any inside White House sources. Honestly, I just try to read the tea leaves like you do. I talked to Roger, but I don't know what access Roger has either. So it's he's in touch with people in the administration, but I don't know what the big game and strategy is.
That's just the biggest frustration.
I know. It's a very complicated thing, and he is there against everybody in Washington. And so, I would not do it the way that he's doing it. And one of the reasons that he's president is because he doesn't do it the way I would do it.
Well,
right?
indeed.
I would never.
And I don't want to second guess it myself, but I do.
Yeah.
It's because of this.
It's frustrating. I want to see this Russia stuff stopped as a distraction to him. He's defending himself like an innocent man would, obsessed with it, instead of just moving on.
Well, nuns came out today and said, I was reading at Breitbart, that nuns come out and said, the Democrats in the deep state are going to be very afraid of what's going to come out. Okay, well then release it. What is...
he's done that once. He did it with the House Intelligence Committee report. He declassified it. You can see there wasn't anything that needed to be classified. It was just cover CYA, right? Is what
Yeah.
they're trying to do. So yeah, I wish you would declassify a bunch of stuff.
But you're saying, timing, maybe the elections, right? But there's enough stuff, there's enough illegal stuff to keep the courts and the press busy for years. I mean, 2 months before the election, who cares? Release the stuff. Let's go.
Well, I'll tell you what, if they do come against him and they step this thing up, Scott Adams and others have said that's when he's really going to start releasing stuff. You know, I mean, that might be one of the reasons why he's been reluctant to let this stuff go. It's like a bargaining chip, and if they push it to the next level, that might be his thing. Like, you assassinate me or whatever. This stuff is all not necessarily assassinating, because at that point,
You ever think we'll see,
like,
like,
try to do a political assassination, all of this stuff is hitting the fan.
you ever see, you think we'll see that day where the crack in the dam just breaks wide open?
Excuse me, I just want to meet you.
Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt.
Thank you so much.
Probably one of the more impressive speakers that I found was Dr. Hugo de Garis. This man is a world-renowned expert in artificial intelligence and robotics, and the things he had to say were dire. He was pretty forthcoming with saying that we will be at war between, there's going to be basically three classes of people. There's going to be the ones that go ahead and wholeheartedly merge with machines and the technology. Then the people who go ahead and will take, go halfway and take the implants and the chips. And then there's going to be the humans, the ones who refuse to become hybrids and, whatever they Star Trek, druids, not druids, but, well, you know what I'm talking about, transhumanists, merging with the machines. Richard Dolan is a foremost expert on the UFOs. And I liked his, although the conference was very heavy on Christianity, probably 50% of it, but understandably tying in all the prophecies of the Bible and what the Bible had to say with what's going down, what is what is happening. So a lot of it ties in together. Very much so. So I like Richard Dolan. I highly recommend you check out some of his videos. Sharon Gilbert is a biologist and an expert on biotechnology and the applications of combining it with the nanobot technology and the biochemistry. So her talk was quite fascinating, and I recommend, she does a series of, she introduces her subjects a lot in the way of fiction. This is one of it. It's called Blood Lies. It's the first in the series. Sharon Gilbert, her fictional series to go ahead and bring people into the fold and the knowledge of. Owen Shroyer, of course, had the honor of getting to meet Owen finally, and we had quite a good conversation in the lobby, and later on in the day, also another one. Owen has made the threat to come and spend a day or two with me on the streets of New Orleans. We shall see if that transpires. Hopefully it does. I figured he could be Paul Revere, I'd be Uncle Sam, and we'll do a truth or dare to the people. Offer them $100 if they can prove us wrong. But they have to admit, of course, that they were wrong if we win any argument. So we'll see if this comes about. He's booked up for the next 8 weeks, he says, but after that, he's going to make a point of trying to come to New Orleans to spend a day or two with me on the streets, which ought to be kick if it happens. I sure hope it does. That would be nice. Gonz, I don't know how to spell that, Gonz Shroyer, talk show radio host, was on the panel, which would be with the Young Bucks, which was Owen Shroyer, Gonz, Justin Farrell, excellent, another filmmaker and also radio host of Fourth Watch Radio Networks. Josh Peck is a prolific author and knowledgeable on the science and the studies of quantum physics, and again the application of this to the co-sciences that we're all talking about here, because all of this that we're talking about blends in together into the control mechanism and how the elites are turning us into an Earth that's better be described as Dr. Moreau's Island, where in a short period of time humans as we know them will cease to exist unless we put a stop to this. So Josh Beck, and then last was David Langford, who gave the sermon, pastor, at the end. Thomas Horn was supposed to be there. He was mentioned quite a bit, but unfortunately, from what I understand, he's feeling good, so he was not feeling well. So I picked up one of his books, Thomas Horn, Saboteurs, Shadow Government, and so I've got quite a bit of reading for me here. I also picked up his autobiography because he seems all these people are interesting, of course, but some more, a little bit more than others. And Thomas Horn is a hero to these heroes. So this is also Josh Peck's novel, which I picked up. Yeah, I ask all the authors what they think are their best works, and usually those are the ones I pick up if I'm not already familiar with their work. So this goes into the connections between quantum physics, ufology, and the supernatural, and how they all blend together. Stephen Quayle recommended that everyone read this book, Omega Dynamics by Jamie Walden. And this is basically a preparedness book for what's coming down. So if you want to survive, if you've got a family and figure you might want to make it through, this is the book that Stephen Quayle recommended by Jamie Walden, who is a former Marine Corps infantry sergeant, police officer, firefighter, paramedic, and tactical medic, and disaster response specialist. So he surely knows what he must be talking about, and now has turned all his research into becoming a author and trumpeter of the truth, as it were. Derek Gilbert was the host of the entire deal, who was married to Sharon, his wife. Primarily, this gentleman is an expert on Christianity and theology, and I had a good conversation. I actually stumped him. I had a conversation with him, and they had a question and answer period, and I never got around to asking the question, but when I got him out in the lobby, I bought his book, The Great Inception by Derek Gilbert, and I asked him, because I was curious to know, the video zeitgeist, and I will get asked this from time to time out there on the street, or told how, all these pagan gods had similarities to Jesus. The 12 disciples, he died, resurrected, performed miracles, blah, 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 blah. And I asked Mr. Gilbert, if he had an answer that I could give to the people that, for the ones that draw these parallels up. And he didn't know, which was surprising to me, given the proliferation of the documentary Zeitgeist, and how many people have seen it, that they would question, of course, the story of Jesus afterwards. And this guy, of course, was nothing but all about Jesus. So we didn't know. So I looked it up, and primarily it was the answer he gave me, that even though he didn't know, he said, well, they could be lying. And essentially, that's the truth. When I looked up what was happening, the Zeitgeist debunked the comparisons to Jesus. During the research, it shows that indeed most of those other deities, or whatever you would, gods, lesser gods, most of those stories were fabricated or unsubstantiated, or just didn't pass the smell test. So I emailed Mr. Gilbert there, and gave him the answer he couldn't give me, in the hopes that if someone asked that again, he might be able to give it. So let's get on to a little bit more of this. I'll show you the lobby. Steve Quayle, of course, is probably the world's foremost expert on giants and our history. And so they had a sculpture of what would be a giant, what they allegedly have found in the caves of Afghanistan and in the Grand Canyon and a lot of different places around the world. And I was hoping I would see some of those artifacts at this conference, but I've come to find out they don't. All we got to see were the plaster lookalikes of them, because they don't allow these things out in the public. The good portion of that documentary there of the hidden history was the Smithsonian hiding the true history of the world from us. And I highly recommend getting it, because it does get into that secret history, which is what this is all about. So do the research out there. Go look at some of these people. I'll be back out on the streets this Friday doing my usual street theater thing. I'll have a bit more ammunition, of course, in my belt to go ahead and work with, but I'll still be dealing with basically the same old clueless public for the most part, except, of course, the people that stop by and talk to me. So here we go. Let's get to it. I'll show you a bit more of what's going on.
All right, this is the lobby of True Legends, and what we're looking at here is one of the sculptures of the giant that they say that exists or existed. And this is a lobby. We're taking a walk around the lobby. It's going to take a look at the transhumanism guy. So the conference just started. It's very interesting. Stephen Quayle got up and spoke, and we're on a 15-minute break. And it's going to be very, very, very informative